Ski Mask Slump God, what is there to really say about this guy that hasn't already been said? Well, actually quite a bit, because most videos I see on Ski Mask seem to be from fans of Juice WRLD and XXXTentacion, and they're not really focused as much on Ski, so I really want to make a video where I talk about his entire career. Yes, his entire career. Because believe it or not, in 2018, Ski Mask Slump God was actually my favorite rapper of all time, and he probably still would be that if it wasn't for the fact that he basically stopped making music for the last 6 years. Apparently he does have a new album on the way, and I'm looking forward to it, but before that comes out, let's look into the entire life and career of Ski Mask Slump God.
I feel great.
Stokely Cleavon Goldborn was born April 18, 1996 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. His parents were divorced when he was only young, leading him to spend most of the time with his mother and grandmother, who were from Jamaican descent. He would listen to a lot of reggae, Bob Marley, and all the classics, but on his dad's side of things, he would listen to rap. He would listen to acts like Wu-Tang Clan, Missy Elliott, and even his dad himself, because his dad was an artist known as Sin City, and funnily enough, he would actually inspire Stokely to not focus on his studies and instead write down raps and try to work on his craft in that way. With his dad even bringing him to the studio to record a hook on one of his songs. We can't find it at this point, but that's actually technically Ski Mask's first song when he was like 8 years old. So you would think life would be pretty simple for young Stokely. I mean, all his dad wants him to do is rap, that's pretty easy. But of course, just like any kid, he would start to rebel, get into fights in school, and sell drugs. With him eventually getting kicked out of school for selling fake lean, and he's very lucky that it was fake lean, because if not, he definitely would have ended up going to juvie, which would have been bad for him because his parents didn't really know what he was getting up to. He was able to kind of hide it and keep it low key. Although I'm assuming once he got expelled from school, his parents probably knew what was going on. He would talk about how his mother would often hit him with wood spoons and his uncle would often squeeze his pressure points when he was in trouble, so I can see why he didn't want to get in trouble with them, but nonetheless, let's digress. He ended up transferring to a high school on the other side of town where he would once again get in trouble for having weed on him. He said it was a very small amount, but we only really have his word to go off of, so we're not sure if that's really true, but this time he wasn't able to avoid juvie and he ended up going away for a couple months. But luckily for him, that event would actually change his life because he ended up meeting another kid in there known as Jose Onfrey. I hope I said that right, please don't flame me in the comments. I swear I actually am an X fan, but anyways, he's better known as XXXTentacion. And the two boys would immediately form a friendship, often being put in the same cell where they would beatbox and rap, beat on chairs, and basically just do anything they could to try to pass the time because it was very boring in there. And you could tell this was a true friendship because Stokely actually ended up having his 17th birthday while he was locked up, and X would give him his extra biscuit as a birthday gift, so that's true love right there. You can't really beat that. Eventually Ski would get out a little bit before X because X was in there for a lot more extreme charges, and after he got out, he would go right back to high school. Eventually X would transfer there too, and the two of them were ready to get into trouble. They were selling drugs, they were getting into fights, and they actually had a plan to break into a house and try to rob the place, but seeing as how Ski was soon going to be 18 years old and they didn't want to go to actual prison, they decided to give rap an actual try. With X buying a blue snowball mic, which is a very poor quality microphone with a lot of static, but they actually ended up using that to their advantage because they liked the distortion and would make a new type of music, which some would describe as trap metal, but to me it's more distorted 808 music. But either way, I'm not going to split hairs. It was new, fresh, and immediately started to pick up traction. But that's actually not true. They only ended up getting about 100 plays on each song they would drop at the time, so if you're a new artist that's struggling and feeling like you're not getting anywhere, remember even X had to start somewhere, and look where he ended up. He ended up getting Billboard hits and everything else, so keep working at it and you can actually make it. Anyways, back to the story. So X was the first one to start rapping. I actually believe he had a couple songs before he ever went to prison in the first place, and all the Ski's songs were basically collaboration tracks with X, with the first one being Gang Cypher Freestyle. A lot of people think that it's Catch Me, but apparently this one came out first, but was deleted pretty quickly after it was released. It was a 5-man cypher with X, Ski, Nora's Spouse, New Age, and a rapper known as E Boogie. It said that they were all local Florida rappers that X and Ski would just happen to meet either over SoundCloud or just from hanging out in the area, but funnily enough, the very next song that Ski would appear on was called V2, which was actually a diss track aimed at Nora's Spouse. So yeah, before they even really got their start in the rap game, they're already having problems with other artists, and even worse than that, Ski and X would actually have a minor problem because on Ski Mask's 18th birthday, he ended up going to the strip club. X would come along too, and he sold a couple drugs to people there, getting them both kicked out and ruining the birthday party. And this is actually the origin of the X song 3am Freestyle. It was meant to be an apology to Ski Mask because of this event, and of course Ski Mask would accept that apology and they continued to make music together. I mean, obviously, if not, I wouldn't even be making this video because there would be no story. And around this very same time, they would form up the rap collective known as Very Rare, which of course included Ski, X, an artist known as Dirty Face Smook, Drugs, also known as Lil Red Dot, SB, and Folly, also known as Paris. Yeah, it seems like most of these guys couldn't decide on a name, but at the time they were going as Drugs and Folly, but they would later change it to Lil Red Dot and Paris. And if you're wondering where the name Ski Mask Slump God came from, he explained it in this mom interview where he said Ski Mask basically meant he was going to get it by any means necessary, and Slump God was just a reference to Xanax, which he was very addicted to at the time. time, or maybe not addicted to, maybe dabbling with, we don't really know, but either way, that's where the name came from.
It was really just like a means, like I wanted it to stand for what I'm about. So it's like ski mask. What does a ski mask stand for? Any means necessary, really. Like that's basically what it was for. And then the Slump God, it was just a lot, like a different time in my life where Xanax was a bit like, yeah, a lot.
Not what you were.
Yeah, not what I am anymore. Probably like eventually I'll probably just drop my name off to just Ski Mask.
The next couple collaborations from Ski and X would also include the rapper known as Drugs. He would appear on Bloodstains as well as Very Rare Boys, which both were put on the EP called Ice Hotel, which was X's first ever EP, album, mixtape, whatever you want to call it, but it was later deleted for unknown reasons. But the first official solo song from Ski Mask was called Catch Me, which was improperly labeled as being produced by X. In reality, they actually just found the beat online, and X was the guy who mixed the song up and released it, but he didn't actually produce it, and this would soon become a common theme with them taking beats offline and getting into trouble because of that. Soon after that, Ski and X would drop 2 more collaboration tracks called Zones and Dirty South, with Dirty South including the rapper known as Spooky Lean, who became pretty infamous after X passed away for trying to scam people, getting beat up, and a whole lot of other stuff. And those 3 artists were supposed to appear on the track known as Come, but it turns out that Ski and X would actually get into another fight, and because of that, Ski wouldn't appear on the track at all. And this was all over the track known as I Am. It turns out that Ski Mask really wanted to release a song on the beat. He would often freestyle and show X, but then X ended up taking the beat and releasing his own song, leading them to fight for about 2 days, get into a little bit of a Twitter spat, and then after that, they were friends again. So no big deal, but it does prove their relationship was always a little bit turbulent. Soon after that, they would drop their track Mega Man, and it turns out they must have made up with Nora's spouse because they all dropped a track together called Prime Time about a year after they had their beef. During this time, Ski and X were definitely still pretty small, but it seems like they were forming quite a few connections. They would eventually meet Flyboy Tarantino, Kid Trunks, and a lot of other people that would eventually form up the group known as Members Only. And this group would also include the artist known as Fuck It, who funnily enough was already in a group with Wi-Fi's Funeral before X and Wi-Fi ever even got to know each other. If you want to know more details about the relationship between X and Fuck It and their eventual fallout, I made a video called The Many Beasts of the Underground where I went way more into detail on that, so check that out if you want to. But for now, Ski and Flyboy Tarantino would drop the track known as Keep It G, and after that, they would start to work on Members Only Volume 1. And there was 2 tracks off this album that really started to pick up steam in the Florida underground: the collab track between Ski and X known as well as Freddy vs. Jason. They were both priorly released before the album came out, but once it dropped, that's when they really started to do numbers. And because of that, they would start to get booked to underground shows, playing at clubs, warehouses, and parties. And that's actually how they met Denzel Curry, because they got booked to play at one of his parties. There was a little bit of confusion where they weren't actually supposed to play, but Denzel let them stay, and that would plant the seeds for them to form a friendship later down the road. And Ronnie J was also there, so they formed 2 connections in one night. At this point, Ski would start working on the Very Rare collaboration EP called Very Rare Rangers, as well as a solo EP called Watch 'Em Drown, but for one reason or another, neither one of these ever ended up releasing, and they would start working on Members Only Volume 2 not long after that. Upon the release of that album, they ended up getting a cult-like fan base within the underground, playing at bigger and bigger shows, and even expanding somewhat outside of Florida so people online would start to know who they were. And funnily enough, X somewhat spawned the careers of 2 other popular rappers known as Smoke Perp and Lil Pump in a roundabout way, because Smoke Perp would get a feature with X called Live Off a Lick, and X would share a snippet of that track on his Twitter, which got Smoke Perp a lot more attention for him to drop his next track called Ski Mask, which ended up doing numbers on SoundCloud, catching the attention of Lyrical Lemonade. And after they filmed the video for Ski Mask, it ended up blowing up on Lyrical Lemonade, and not only that, but it was the first time that the world really got to see Lil Pump. So in a roundabout way, X not only put on Smoke Perp and Lil Pump, but also kinda Lyrical Lemonade. I mean, they were kinda buzzing before that, but you see what I mean. He was very influential even when he wasn't that big. Anyways, getting back to Ski, he ended up securing 2 features from the artist known as Young Bands, as well as Uno the Activist, who was already pretty big in the scene at the time for working with Playboi Carti, as well as being part of Splur Gang. And even better than that, Ski and X would appear on the track Space Goes Pussy, which featured Denzel Curry and was meant to be a diss track aimed at Space Goes Perp. I can't believe this guy is finding his way into my videos again, but basically what happened here is that Denzel and Perp used to be part of a group known as Raider Clan. After Denzel left, Perp started talking a lot of shit about him, which he didn't really mind, he didn't respond to it. But after Perp and his homie Chapo started dissing the passed away rap producer known as ASAP Yams from ASAP Mob, they decided to diss him. But it's kind of funny they decided to go at Perp and not Chapo, because Chapo's the one who actually made the diss track aimed at ASAP Yams in the first place. But there's actually a funny story that goes along with that. Because if you guys are at all aware about the beef between Lil Peep and Ski Mask, which I have made videos on in the past, but will very briefly summarize here, basically Ski Mask ended up going over to Peep's place, made a track with him and Tracy, and then his clothes went missing because Young Goth decided to steal them. But Ski didn't notice that his clothes were missing until he got off the plane and was already home, so he went on Twitter and started going crazy on Peep, making videos calling him out in every way that he could. And it turns out that Chapo was actually with Peep when this was going on, telling Ski Mask to pull up and fight. But I think they might be good now because they actually have a song together in 2017, so hopefully there's peace, but it is kind of funny how everything kind of connects. And another random fact about this song is that Denzel and X actually had a bit of a falling out because Denzel would forgive Space Ghost Perp and become friends with him again, where X stayed very mad at him, dropping the diss track Sipping Tea in Your Hood, which is still one of his most popular tracks to date. Anyways, by the time this all went down, it was late 2015, and X was finding himself in trouble with the law once again after he did a home invasion and got caught on security camera, being arrested and staying in jail until the end of the year. And during the time he was locked up, his breakout hit Look at Me would drop on Elevator on December 31st, 2015, but it wouldn't really start to pick up steam until a full year later when other circumstances would take place. Oh, by the way, before anyone tries to call me out for my timeline, I know that Sipping Tea in Your Hood and the whole Peep drama took place during 2016. I just thought it was more relevant to mention a little bit earlier on. But anyways, once X got out of prison, he would then get an interview on the No Jumper podcast. It was called the XXXTentacion interview, but he also brought along with him Ski Mask, Wi-Fi's Funeral, and a bunch of other members and members only. Ski was pretty quiet during the entire interview, but despite that, it still did numbers and gave them their first real breakthrough into the internet world, with everybody wondering about these two rappers that were taking over the Florida underground, which made it the perfect time for Ski to finally drop his first solo project called Drowned Designer, which featured iconic tracks like Rip Roach and Take a Step Back. These two tracks became their most iconic songs at the time as well as their biggest, and he also got features from Lil Pump and Keith Ape, so overall his first venture as a solo artist definitely did well. He would also drop another EP at the time called Very Rare The Lost Tapes, proving that the collective was around in some capacity, but it definitely didn't do as well as his first mixtape. Ski would continue to get bigger and bigger, getting more opportunities and eventually getting booked as an opener on Designer's tour alongside Rob Stone, but unfortunately Ski was the first one to come out, meaning the audience turnout would be the smallest for him, which made him pretty upset. This would lead Ski to continue to stand on stage after his set was over and protest, trying to get to play after Rob because he felt like he was the bigger artist, and because of that, security would actually have to pull him off stage and him and Rob would start a bit of a beef. As soon as that situation went down, both Ski and X would start to call out Rob on Twitter.
What the f*** did this man your son? Yo!
Which definitely wasn't a good idea because at the very next show, Rob and his boys ended up beating up Ski, jumping him, pulling down his pants, and filming the entire thing. This made X absolutely furious, with him going off on Rob on Twitter, saying a bunch of stuff that I definitely can't repeat because it's pretty vulgar, and Adam22 even talks about the fact that X was trying to get on a plane and fly over there to fight Rob, but he was actually talked down from it.
You and your boyfriends, you and all your little boyfriends can't go to no cities. And they can't tour. That nigga rap career done. You gonna have to go work at Publix, bro. When we done with you, nigga, you gonna have to go work at Publix, nigga. That shit dead.
And this actually ended up getting both Ski and Rob Stone kicked off the tour, which is definitely a big bummer, but luckily for Ski, not long after that, he ended up playing at one of the most iconic underground rap shows of all time alongside Smoke Perp, Lil Pump, Lil Xan for some reason, and XXXTentacion. Look at Me just surpassed 1 million plays on SoundCloud, and the energy in there looked insane. You got Lil Ominous, you got Danny Towers, DJ Scheme is there. Basically all these iconic rappers that would soon be popular in the coming years were there. And Elevator was actually there filming the entire show, and soon after that both X and Ski would do an interview with them where Ski was once again pretty quiet, but you can tell that he's somewhat coming out of his shell at this point. And by the summer of 2016, Ski would drop his next project, a 4-song EP called Slaps for My Drop Top Minivan, which included the track Like a Soccer Mom. This track ended up going semi-viral online, and I think it even got a little bit bigger than Look at Me at the time, meaning that on the level of clout between X and Ski, I think Ski was just a little bit higher. It's kind of weird because it seems like X is definitely the more popular one at the time, but I feel like he had more of a cult fan base and people in Florida definitely preferred him. But on the marketing side of things, I think Ski Mask was the one that was a little bit easier to market because he wasn't talking about R-wording people on Twitter, but I'm not really sure. You'd really have to be there to know. Soon after that, Ski would feature on a track alongside Lil Yachty called Finito, which was definitely a pretty big cosign because Yachty was definitely blowing up during 2015 and 2016. But the biggest moment for both of their careers definitely came at the end of the year when X was once again arrested for what most people online thought was for a parole violation, which technically was true, but they didn't know what really went down, and because of that, they were all saying Free X, and Look at Me started to gain numbers and eventually chart on the Billboard Hot 100, with everybody online tweeting at Ski almost every day saying Free X, which actually started to annoy him because I feel like his career was really starting to get off the ground and now he was being overshadowed by X again. I don't think the jealousy was getting to him too bad, but over time it definitely would wear on their relationship. The track ended up peaking at number 34 on the Billboard, and not long after that, X was released in early 2017, immediately getting a record deal and dropping a compilation album called Revenge. And not very long after that, the entire Members Only collective ended up going on the Revenge tour, which most people know is the most chaotic and insane tours to ever be thrown during the SoundCloud era. There was fights every night, people were getting stabbed, sent to the hospital, X got knocked out at one of the shows, openers weren't allowed to go on stage because of that, and the tour actually ended up getting cancelled before it could even be completed. But despite that, the entire Members Only collective was not only buzzing in the underground, but actually the mainstream at this point, and they immediately capitalized on that by dropping Members Only Vol. Volume 3, which ended up becoming the group's most popular project during the time that all the members were still active and alive. But after that, they would start to break off, get their own solo deals, go in different directions, which was good because it meant that the members were actually getting paid and becoming bigger, but at the same time it meant that group dynamic that everybody loved so much during the Revenge tour was coming to an end and everybody was going in their own direction. And this included Ski Mask, who went on to sign a deal with Republic Records, starting to work on his first ever official project, You Will Regret, as well as working with his all-time favorite producer, Timberland, to make his breakout track, Catch Me Outside. And this song would go on to get a video on Lyrical Lemonade, which at the time was already a really big deal, blowing Ski Mask up into the mainstream, as well as forming a connection with Cole Bennett that still exists even to this day, with him still dropping songs on the channel in 2024. And a couple days after that video came out and started to go viral, he would drop his first project, You Will Regret, which a lot of fans really seemed to like, and it seemed like Ski was finally finding his voice as a solo artist. But even with all these new opportunities and connections, unfortunately his old connections would start to break down, because at this point, him and X ended up having a full-on fallout that was never rectified during the time that X was alive. It all started with an article from Pitchfork where they exposed the fact that X was actually arrested for domestic abuse, and that's why he went to jail during the time that Look at Me was blowing up. Now, we're not sure exactly what went on behind the scenes. All we know is that Capitol Records would drop him at this point, and a couple days later he was talking about how he was having the worst day of his life and that Ski Mask needed to be his friend once again. He ended up saying he wasn't going to make music again, and then he said he would make music if Ski Mask would become his friend.
Announcement. If you want me to make music, tell Ski Mask to be my friend again.
Ski Mask ended up responding with a video basically saying he didn't want to be in X's shadow anymore.
But I had to distance myself because it's like nobody would see me as a individual rapper if I don't. On top of that, that nigga crazy as hell.
I feel like it was probably a label decision where they didn't want Ski associating with X because of course it's bad for business to work with somebody who has that type of charges.
If you're an artist and you're trying to work with anyone in the industry, understand that you cannot trust anyone. People that you trust, people that are your friends, people that are close to you, the people you do business with will always try and fuck you over. Trust no one. Do not trust anyone. Today was a real fucked up day for me because people I trusted with my home, people I trusted with my life had shown me today that they can't be trusted. So from this day forward, I'm going to treat everyone very, 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 very differently. And I'm going to be all I ask from my fans and supporters today is to give me some sort of good energy or positive energy because I'm having a really fucking bad day and I'm very disappointed today.
So what happened with me and Ski, to explain it in an appropriate way and in a way that I can respect, it was just, I guess, a lack of appreciation on his end, not because of me, I guess just from a business perspective, but he put a business perspective before a personal relationship, and I've been with him as a friend and as a brother for a very long time, so.
Everybody who talks about the subject always seems to want to make it into a jealousy thing, which I definitely do think was a factor. I feel like Ski was slightly jealous of X, but at the same time, he was probably worried about his own career, and associating with X might have destroyed everything he had going for himself. It sounds petty, but a lot changes when you go from two friends making music together in your garage to actually big-time artists in the mainstream with labels, managers, lawyers, and everything else involved. Ski would later clarify the reason he cut off X is because he said he was going to sacrifice him and his entire family, but at this point it seems like that was probably a joke from X, and it seems like an excuse from Ski Mask to justify the fact that he cut off his best friend. But this wouldn't hinder Ski's growth at all, because soon after that he dropped another video on Lyrical Lemonade for his track Baby Wipe, and then he released a deluxe version of You Will Regret that featured Take a Step Back, Baby Wipe, and Catch Me Outside. This project ended up doing way better than the original version of it, and he immediately wanted to drop his next project, Book of Eli, but he ended up having a lot of problems with the label not letting him drop. He couldn't get beats cleared, so he decided to leak his entire project before it even came out, which definitely wasn't a very good idea, because once the album actually came out it ended up not doing very well in the sales department because most people had already listened to the leak. He did have one song on the project called Coolest Monkey in the Jungle, which ended up going semi-viral once again, but besides that the album was kind of a flop. He ended up putting out another video on Lyrical Lemonade for the track Do I Have the Sauce, but it definitely didn't get the type of views that Catch Me Outside and Baby Wipe got, so people were starting to wonder if Ski Mask actually had longevity in the rap game. Although he would land a placement on the XXL freshman list in 2018, 1 year after X got it in 2017, so that was definitely a plus, but you can see how he's still getting kind of overshadowed by X at this point. And around the same time, Ski Mask would start working on his next project known as Stokely, and it seems like he was kind of worried about the sales of it because he would actually ask X for a feature on the project, with X responding, "No, I don't want to be your friend anymore." And Ski would actually respond to that in an Instagram video basically saying that he didn't want to be friends with X either, and the only reason he was trying to hit him up was to make music, which was definitely weird because why would you want to make music with somebody that you don't even like?
Man, I wasn't saying anything about friendship, man. I was talking about making a song, bro.
But either way, it felt like X and Ski were starting to move farther and farther apart, and fans were starting to lose hope that they would ever work together again. And X actually ended up responding to this in a DJ Academic's live stream, where he would talk about the fact that him and Ski fell out, how he lost a lot of friends after he got famous, and how he was actually the one who got sacrificed by going to prison and blowing them both up.
Do you hold anything with that of how he did it against him?
Yeah, but in a respectful manner. Like, the only thing that wasn't cool to me is the nigga said I was gonna sacrifice him, because I've talked to him since and he admitted he was wrong and that he was bugging. I'm mad because he didn't go on the internet and say that he said he was bugging, but he came to me and he said, "Yo, I was wrong, I was bugging."
But you're not sacrificing nobody. Just clear that up.
No, bro, I sacrificed my fucking self. I went to jail for months and we all blew the fuck up. If I ain't go to jail for months, nigga, we would not have blown the fuck up.
That is very true.
It's a fucking fact, paved in stone. I was the sacrifice, nigga. Niggas are just ungrateful. I was the sacrifice. I went to jail and was the fucking sacrifice. That's why I'm not trying to go through certain shit no more. Because when I got out, everybody latched onto me like vampires, sucked up my energy, and then left and didn't realize who the they was sucking blood from. And I've been angry about this shit since. Because I lost friends, bro. I lost friends to this fame shit, bro. Yeah. I lost my brother, and then even my family started acting different.
And X definitely still seemed to be pretty pissed off with Ski Mask, telling him that there was no reason for them to not work together anymore, and if Ski felt like he was really in X's shadow, he should have tried to work harder, and their competitive nature would have made them both thrive to be better artists.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Would you have done the same thing?
Oh, hell
you
no.
Going to jail and coming back?
No. You know what I would have did? It would have became friendly competition. It would have became a battle, but it would have been a battle right in front of each other. I would have looked my contestant in his eyes and been like, "Nigga, I'm gonna surpass you, nigga. I'm gonna do better than you, like the many times I did, bro."
And at that moment, it seemed like all hope was lost, that X and Ski would never work together again. It seemed like they couldn't get over their issues, and there would never be another track between the two again. But luckily, the fans actually got something. Even though it wasn't a track, they did perform together at Rolling Loud in 2018, and it seemed like they actually made up. Unfortunately, though, this was all an act on Ski Mask's part. Apparently, X really did want to make up with Ski Mask, but Ski was still pretty jealous of X, and he didn't want to listen to anything he had to say. X would tell Ski that his vision was clouded, and he was going towards a cliff that he would soon fall off, but Ski didn't want to hear any of it. He walked away, and that was the last time he ever saw X in person before he passed away. But even with that door closing forever, Ski would start working with Juice WRLD not long after that. I think they met through Lyrical Lemonade, but I'm not really sure, and they would start working on a joint collaboration project called The Evil Twins. With the two of them doing a Montreality interview where you could really see the chemistry between them, it seemed like they were really close friends, but unfortunately, as we all know at this point, only about 5 days later, X would pass away in a robbery gone wrong, and Ski was heartbroken. And even though they weren't friends at the time that X passed away, I do think they would have eventually become friends again. It was kind of like Lil Tracy and Lil Peep, where they were fighting, but they really loved each other deep down. I mean, at least that's what I think. We'll never know at this point, unfortunately, but in a weird turn of events, we would get one more Ski and X song, because Crippy Red actually ended up leaking a song the very same day that X passed away called Danny Phantom, which featured Ski Mask, him, and X, and then he took it down and put it back up with Quavo on it, which was super weird. Not really sure why that happened, but at least we got one more track with the two of them together, because Ski hasn't appeared on any of the posthumous albums that X put out. A couple months after X passed away, Ski would end up putting out his debut studio album Stokely, which ended up peaking at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, as well as featuring some of his biggest songs to date like Foot Fungus and Faucet Failure. And a bunch of these tracks ended up getting videos on Lyrical Lemonade, including the track La La, where you can actually see X in the background, or at least a shadow or stand-in. Basically, it was a tribute to him, saying that X was still looking over Ski even to this day. There was also a track on this project called Nuketown featuring Juice WRLD, where both Ski and Juice would scream at the top of their lungs songs, which was definitely cool to hear because we didn't often get to hear Juice WRLD really yelling on tracks, besides Nuketown and one song off of Death Race for Love called Syphilis. Unfortunately, some drama would come with this project too, because apparently So High was supposed to feature on Members Only Volume 4 and was supposed to have Flyboy Tarantino on it, so him and Ski would get into a fight afterwards and talk about how Ski was changing up and that he wasn't working with Members Only anymore.
Don't be yelling. No reason to
Yo,
yell.
listen here, Stephen.
What's good?
Yo, Stephen.
Hey, don't
Stop
yell.
it, bro. Stop it. Stop it, Stephen. How many songs have I done with you for nothing, Stephen? Just because you my homeboy.
I don't know. You tell
my
me.
homeboy, bro.
You tell me, bro.
So you gonna call me a bitch over a song, my nigga? How many free songs have I done with you just because you my homeboy?
If that was the case, family, if that was the case, family, then why the you didn't call my phone? So why you didn't call my phone?
I ain't call you.
So why you didn't call my phone and tell me I'm not on the
I ain't
song?
call you. I ain't call you and tell you niggas from Members Only was trying to do that shit.
Bro, you ain't. I don't give a fuck about none of that. I'm talking about the song, bitch ass nigga. You took me off the song.
I'm a bitch ass nigga now.
Yes,
I'm a bitch
bro,
ass
you
nigga.
Nigga too at that, nigga. You a fuck nigga too at that, bro. Cause you couldn't even hit my phone, bro. You couldn't even hit my phone. I'm done yelling, bro. You couldn't even hit my phone and tell me, fam, I'm gonna put this song as the intro, bro. I'm gonna take you and Ken off of
my
it.
nigga.
I would have respected you for that, fam. Come on, bro. I don't want to hear that, bro. That's not.
And after that, Kid Trunks would also call out Ski Mask, saying that he was switching up on Members Only, he wasn't raising his daughter because apparently he has a daughter, I didn't know that, and basically just talked a bunch of shit to him.
Collab with Ski. I made music with Ski before. Get the fuck out. But like, your favorite rapper switched up on his little brother and blocked his little brother. The rapper switched up on his own partners, calling his own partners a clout sucking ass when he over here clout sucking with Rich the Kid and Famous Dex and shit. We supposed to be brothers and shit, right? I don't know what the fuck going on. So how you calling me a clout sucking ass nigga? Try to dirty my face for everybody and shit when you over here not taking care of your child. Nobody knows you have a child. I know your baby mama. Take care of your child.
Try to bring a young, real down, but you can't. I'm eating regardless. But tell that boy don't run. Tell that boy don't hide. Tell that boy his next show. Tell that boy I'ma slide. Tell that boy when I see him, I'ma piss on him on video. Tell that boy when I see.
That was really wrong, and I understand why he's mad. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm sorry, Ski. I'm sorry. From the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry. And nigga, I love you, my nigga. We gonna be brothers forever. Like, I ain't get VR tatted on me for no reason, bro. I got VR tatted on me for the rest of my fucking life. Yeah, the beef is squashed. There was no beef in the first place.
But eventually the two would make up after a couple of videos back and forth. And once all that was settled, they ended up putting out Members Only Volume 4, which basically was meant to be a tribute to X because Members Only hadn't really been a fully formed collective since around 2017. There was too much infighting, people were growing apart, but they all came together one more time to give one more album to X. But now that their captain was gone, there was no way the collective was going to stay together anymore, and they basically disbanded. 2019 was a slow year for Ski Mask. It seems like he was dealing with label problems, definitely going through grief from X's passing, and just not putting out a whole lot of music. He ended up dropping a single named Carbonated Water that was supposed to appear on a mixtape that was going to come out in 2019, but it never ended up materializing. He was also supposed to drop Evil Twins sometime that year, but of course that never ended up coming out either. But he did work with DJ Scheme on his mixtape called The Preseason. The only other notable things he did this year was performing at Rolling Loud, as well as dropping the music video on Lyrical Lemonade for Nuketown about a year after the actual project came out, which would help to keep him somewhat relevant within the public eye. But as time went on, less and less people were thinking about Ski Mask. Besides the fact that he was X's sidekick and a friend of Juice WRLD, it seemed like he was really starting to lose his actual personality within the rap game, but that only got worse at the end of 2019 when Juice WRLD passed away. He would immediately post on Twitter talking about how he lost all his brothers and he didn't feel like making music anymore, which a lot of fans understood. It was definitely something hard to go through, but for the next couple years it got worse and worse with more gaps between his releases, and eventually he just wasn't dropping music at all. He was supposed to be on Justin Bieber's album, but he ended up getting replaced by Lil Dicky. He ended up dropping another music video on Lyrical Lemonade for the song Burn the Hoods, which was supposed to be the single off his next album, but once again that never materialized. And by the end of the year he would appear on DJ Scheme's Family album, which definitely helped to keep him somewhat relevant. There was a lot of big features on that album, but once again, like I'm saying, basically Ski Mask was becoming a side character within the rap game, and with no solo music to satiate fans, they were withering away and his fan base wasn't growing. But that was until 2021 when he announced that he'd be putting out 3 albums during the year, with the first one named Sin City. And this album was pretty good. The fans liked it, it sold pretty well, and for the most part it seemed like Ski Mask was really coming back. Although the album was a little bit light on features and most people saw it as only a sample platter for what was yet to come. But then nothing came whatsoever. There was no more albums for the rest of the year, and I feel like this is when a lot of people became very upset with Ski. He was promising things that he wasn't doing, and it's not that they didn't understand what he was going through with the grief from his friends, but after 2 years they were like, come on Ski, you gotta get back on the horse. In 2022 and 2023 is what I would explain as the most dead years for Ski Mask. I mean, he dropped a couple things here and there, but at this point I wasn't even really keeping up with what he was doing because he was promising stuff and not really delivering. He dropped a couple videos on the Lyrical Lemonade channel, promised to Catch Me Outside Part 2. You could see him hanging out with X's son, which a lot of fans really appreciated, and unfortunately it seems like he actually has a heart condition that he needs to have surgery on, so that's not good. I mean, we got some stuff. We got a feature with Sempra. He actually appeared on the Lyrical Lemonade album in 2024, so he's still around, but I feel like at this point he's seen as nothing but a sidekick to X and Juice, or just the friend, the side character, you know, a tribute act to X, but for the most part the Ski Mask that we all knew and loved basically isn't doing the stuff that he used to, and that's okay. I mean, people evolve. I'm not mad at him for not making music anymore, but as a fan it definitely is kind of disappointing. But it seems like this year he's really going to try to make a comeback. He's talking about putting out a new album and he actually has a track list for it, so it seems like it will materialize sometime in the next couple months. I'm pretty interested to see how this album will sell, because overall I feel like a lot of people think Ski Mask fell off, but people still think about him over half a decade later, even without dropping any music, and I feel like most artists, if they did that, they would not be around in anybody's memory whatsoever. But the music industry has changed so much since he dropped his last album. I mean, TikTok was on the rise, everything's changed, there's industry plants everywhere, so is he going to be able to make it sell well and really find a new core audience, or are the old fans still going to be around from the X days? I don't know. But I do want to throw my hat into the ring at the end of the video to talk about why I think that Ski Mask stopped making music during 2019. I feel like after X passed away, it definitely hurt him and he had to take some time off, as well as the label issues and all the stress and probably guilt from not being friends with X when he passed away. And I definitely think that was the best choice for him to make and probably the healthiest one as well. But Ski Mask was always the type of artist that would drop non-stop music. He never really thought too much about his releases, and he put out 3 albums during 2018, so you could see that he just wanted to make music non-stop and not really care about the process of it, which is how a lot of artists are. If you keep dropping, you're never going to get that weird imposter syndrome that a lot of big artists will get eventually, where it's like, can I really live up to Ski Mask? And not only that, but now that Juice and X are passed away, he now also has to live up to their legacy, so it's a lot of stress. He probably feels like nothing he drops will ever be good enough. I know that's how Gizmo said that he felt about his album, and I know a lot of artists go through that, but they can't really explain that to their fans because they're like, what? You're an artist, you're a rapper, that's what you do, just rap, it's that simple. But it gets harder as time goes on. And of course, no matter what, he's probably going to deal with people being like, oh, it's not as good as Catch Me Outside or all those old songs, because during the time that you listened to them, you were a kid, they were some of your fondest memories, so they're always going to be special to you, and that new music is never going to hit the same as it did when you were a kid. And many fans will say that the artist switched up, stopped making the style of music they liked in the first place, but all that changed is that you grew up, you're at a different part in your life, and that music is never going to hit the same as it did back in the day, and that's okay. But putting that on the artist definitely puts them in a weird spot. I mean, put yourself in his shoes. Imagine when you were younger, you made this song with your friends, it just happened to be the spur of the moment, and then it got really big and a lot of people loved it. But now you're really trying to put time and effort into your music and make something special, but yet people always compare it to that music that you made with your friend when you were like 17 years old. That's what happens to a lot of artists, and if you can never live up to that song in the first place, what's the point of making anything new? You know, fans are never going to like it as much. Probably happened to Lil Skies, Little Pump, Ski Mask, Trippie Redd. I'm sure it's happened to everybody, but all you can do is just keep creating, and eventually you'll make another song that people love just as much, and you won't fade away. Don't get me wrong, it's hard. There's going to be a lot of flops between your one big hit and the next big hit, and you're going to feel like nobody cares anymore and you'll never live up, but you just have to keep working, keep putting out music, and eventually you will hit again. I promise you. That's all you got to do. Keep working. But with all that said, before I go on too much of a tangent, shout out to Ski Mask the Slump God. I'm definitely still a fan and super excited to see how that album comes out, and maybe when it drops I'll make a video talking about what I thought about it. But besides that, rest in peace X, rest in peace Juice WRLD, and thank you guys so much for watching. Shout out Knife Gang. Subscribe to the channel. We just passed 14K. Really appreciate you guys for that. And we're only going up. And besides that, got the second channel, Twisted Society, trying to get it to 1K so I can live stream on there. So if you want to check that out, be my guest. If not, that's cool too. But either way, thank you guys. Peace.